Good evening, Top Fan Rivalry supporters and followers, and welcome to Dodger Update with Scott, with Bill. Scott, how the heck are you, man? It's Wednesday. Let's talk some Dodger
Oh
baseball, yeah?
man, it's glorious that we have actual baseball to talk about again. Spring training, not quite opening day, but hey, spring training. We've got Max Muncy hitting a homer, Andy Pajes making a sliding catch in the outfield. It feels good to have baseball back.
Baseball's back, yes. Before we get too deep into our topics today, I want to thank our corporate sponsors. Top Fan Rivalry is a small business. We love our corporate sponsors. They're what keeps us going. We want to first thank Duncan. The Inland Empire is run on Dunkin' Donuts. Scotty, these guys that supported us, they have locations in Upland, Rancho Cucamonga, California, Fontana, the Ontario Airport, one in Colton. They're adding a second one in Colton. If you're looking for a great little diner, go to Ruby's Diner, right? And then if you're
Yeah.
looking for clothing brand, we got Drunken Gentleman there. So, Scott, we got a bunch there. I mean,
Hey,
Southern California, we just had an event here. It was amazing.
how'd that go at Ruby's? I was really sad I couldn't make it work this time.
Oh, it was amazing, you guys. We rented out the rooftop. We're gonna actually do it again in either April or May. Renting
Awesome.
out the rooftop of this building. The food was amazing. Ruby's actually did a really, really good job. And then we showed the
Good.
Sandlot, and we had kids
Oh,
there that they
love that movie.
pulled up their little lawn chairs in the front, and
Oh,
we had a
love
little
it.
technical difficulty. Rubies thought that they had their sound system wired for to be wireless, and apparently they didn't have the right connection. So we were delayed about 45 minutes, but the Rubies people said, "We'll just call it a rain delay." I'm like, "That's
There you
perfect.
go.
It's a
Hey,
rain
that's
delay.
perfect.
It's a rain
All us
delay."
baseball fans know about rain delays. They happen. Just it's is what it is.
Yes, 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 yes. So, that being said, it was an amazing time. And
Good.
then we had about 40 people there, I think. And then the cornhole tournament had about 15, 18 people there. That was a lot of fun too. So,
Good.
just
Good.
a
Good.
lot of good time, a lot of good time. Okay, let's
Good.
get into
Awesome.
some Dodger baseball, right?
Let's do.
First and foremost, the guy who needs to mentally have a comeback has struggled the last season and a half or so mentally, I think, which has affected him physically. And as you and I know, Scotty, baseball is more of a mental game than it is a physical game.
Yes.
This poor
For
guy
sure.
walks the first batter and then gets drilled by a
Oh,
105.6 mile an hour ball off
yeah.
a bat.
Freaking
Talk
Bobby
to me,
Miller.
Scotty.
That was scary. And you always hate to see those. It doesn't matter if it's your team or not. You hate to see those. And it's brutal. Luckily, no blood drawn. Wasn't as bad as that could have been. And as bad as we've seen it be before with comebackers like that. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's man, that poor guy has just been up against it every which way to Sunday, and I want to see him healthy so we can see what he really has. I think he could be a great part of our rotation, and it just was sad to me. It was like, okay, we're going to finally get a chance with Bobby Miller, and now he's in concussion protocol, and they're saying they don't know. It could be they're hoping he's back spring training, but it could be after opening day.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that kind of scares me, to be totally truthful with you. You can't get hit like that and not have it affect you mentally. I
Right.
mean, if you're not doing the math here, everybody, rubber to home plate is 60 feet 6 inches. The average player is about 6 foot. That's a pitcher. That means they're releasing the ball someplace about 58 feet. When they follow through, they're about 57, 56 feet away from home plate.
Right.
When a ball comes off a bat at 105 miles an hour, there is no chance to duck. You don't have the,
No.
you don't have, nobody has that reaction. Nobody
No.
has that reaction time.
No, and every once in a while you see a guy throw his glove up in front of his head and catch the ball or knock it down or whatever, but that's just sheer reaction. That's just your natural reaction, not you don't have time to think in that situation.
Yeah,
Those guys just they happen to that happens to be their knee jerk reaction and they, get up and block it. So,
yeah,
but yeah, that was
exactly.
scary and like I said, sad too cuz I want to see Bobby Miller. I want a season of Bobby Miller and see what we got.
Me too, me too. But It is definitely a different scenario, different feeling, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't like seeing that happen.
No, well, and like you said, when you're Bobby Miller, when you're that guy that takes that, there's a mental aspect you're going to have to deal with and get over getting back out there and pitching because you don't want to get the yips on the mound because you're worried about a comebacker again.
100%.
That can be that
100%.
that
And
can happen.
I was talking with a couple of people offline, and we talked about what does that do? Like you said, what's that going to do for you in the future? Like when you see a ground ball that comes past you that's nowhere near you, is it going to make you jump? Is it going to make you think twice? Like, how's this all
Yeah,
play itself out, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Um, um, okay. We got Bobby out of the way there.
Yep.
Let's stay on the bump. Uh,
Okay.
let's stay on the bump. We got Dustin May making an
Yeah.
appearance. We got Tyler Glass now making an appearance. Thoughts?
Good to see them back. Glasnow pitched today. He only pitched an inning, but he struck out the first two batters he faced, and probably most importantly, in his interview after, he talked about how he felt great. He felt like he had command, felt like he had his stuff. He did end up giving up 2 runs, but it's first start in a while, first start of spring training. He's just out there to feel what it's like to be in a game again. Um, Glad to have him back. Glad to have Dustin May after his scary
Yes.
time on the injured list, and I mean, literally almost dying. I mean, that's thank goodness he didn't, and thankfully he's back and looking healthy, and he looked pretty good in his first appearance as well. So look, important guys Dodgers are going to need as we get through the season, and especially as we get towards the end of the season and trying to close out winning the division and hopefully rolling into the playoffs on a high note and ready for that. And we'll need them. We talked about this a couple episodes ago with me that Dave Roberts' job last year in the World Series and pitching with the bullpen games and being able to win a World Series without a full rotation, pretty spectacular. But don't expect that to be able to be the scenario again, Dodger fans, because that just catching that lightning in a bottle is probably not happening again. So what we got to
No.
do is hope that Dustin May, that Tyler Glasnow are healthy, that Kershaw's healthy as we get into the playoffs and all that, and yeah, well, and all these other guys. Love to see Shohei get out there and pitch for the Dodgers. We haven't seen him pitch since he was an Angel, and it's been a little while. Our other two, Yamamoto and Sasaki, would love to see them. We're gonna see at least one of them in Japan at the official season opener in Japan. Hopefully both of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you just look. We learned last year as the Dodgers that you just don't know what injuries are going to do, and so we'd rather have a couple extra pitchers that we're moving in and off of the injured list over the year, so that when it comes time to have our playoff run, we can put a really good pitching staff together, and hopefully they're all healthy and ready to go.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing that's interesting that what people don't recognize is the fact that pitching is the only thing that will win you titles.
Right,
And even though the Dodgers on their depth chart have probably 15 guys that would be number one, two, or the very worst three on another
right.
team, um, we've already seen some people go down. We've already seen some injuries
Yep.
take place. We're
Yeah. I
already
mean,
being
I,
told that,
I I'm
certain people will be out.
yeah. I'm scrolling through the injured list, and there's names. Oh, I was like, oh, that's right, he's hurt. Oh, Gavin Stone. Oh, that's right. I mean, I probably won't see him till next year. But like Gratterall is on the injured list. Sheehan's on the injured. I mean, it's all pitchers on our injured list right now.
Yeah.
River Ryan, who maybe second half of the year, last third of the year, we might see him. Evan Phillips has started throwing, so we'll see him sooner than later. Literally, the only guy not a pitcher on their injury list right now is Freddie Freeman because of his ankle surgery. So we know as Dodger fans, we've seen this happen to us before, where guys get hurt at the wrong time. So
Yeah, and
it's the
and
last thing you need.
honestly, and it's okay. It's okay to watch people have injuries and go through the injuries, but you need a huge depth chart. And
Yeah,
right now, that's what the Dodgers are trying to build. The Dodgers
yeah,
are head and shoulders better than they were last year, and they won the World
Right.
Series last
Right.
year.
Right.
So,
They're getting
uh,
healthier. They've got better bats overall in the lineup. You've got better pitching staff going into the season, especially if they can stay healthy. Yeah, let's go get it. Let's repeat. Been a
yeah,
while since we've
let's
had
make sure
something
that
like
we're
that
doing
in
all the right
baseball. So
things at
let's
all the
do it.
right times,
Yeah,
right?
let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, so we've got all of that happening. Now let's move around the infield because I'm curious, and there's some things I'm gonna want to chat with you
Okay.
about. But we got Mookie Betts at shortstop. First of all, I mean, obviously in Dave we trust. Dave is a great
Right.
manager.
Right.
What are your thoughts about Dave Roberts having Mookie at short?
I mean, I don't know, and it's hard because we're not there, right? We're not at every practice, at every training session. We aren't seeing what's going on. Um, I like Mookie, and Mookie's a great athlete, and I think he can do pretty good at shortstop. Just a little weird. It just feels like I don't know. It just it feels unnatural to me, and that's partly just because I've mostly known Mookie in the outfield. So,
Yeah,
but and it usually goes the other way. Usually, you're moving an infielder to the outfield as he gets older because he's slowing down a little bit. It usually doesn't come back the other way. So, a little different. But I think you hit the nail on the head right at the outset of this topic, and that's just kind of in Dave we trust at this point. Like we just got to kind of let it play out and see what happens. I think. You know,
you
hopefully he
know,
doesn't cost us. Hopefully he doesn't cost us any games at the position. I don't think it's that dire. Like I said, he's a good athlete and he's quick and he can move and he's got a good arm. He has I think the talent to be there. It's just and I also think he's a guy that's going to put in the time. So hopefully that combination we end up with a you know uh, good shortstop and hopefully him focusing on the defensive side doesn't take too much away from him at the plate because
yeah,
that's where we need him more.
yeah, 100%. I'm gonna go back. You and I covered this before. Mookie's probably one of the best athletes out there.
Yeah.
Pure
Yeah.
athlete,
Yeah,
pure
for sure.
athlete. Probably one of the best pure athletes out there. That being said, um, that being said, and I love Mookie to pieces, but that
Mhm.
being said, um, I here's where I get confused or concerned because I
Okay.
want Tommy Edman in the game.
Yep.
I love his speed. I love his ability to wrap around, like Gavin Lux was doing, bat number
Mhm.
nine, wrap
Yep.
around.
Yep.
I want to give Andy Paez a chance. I want to give James Outman a chance. Uh, I would love to have Miguel Rojas for his defense at short.
Right.
The problem is that they just don't fit. If Mookie's playing short, you have an odd man out someplace. Now, Tommy will probably get some reps at third. He'll get some reps at second, although we have Kim over there that will
Yep.
get some reps. Um, so who's the odd man out? When you're looking at it, who's the odd man out? I mean,
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it just yeah, it's funny because you say that, but if you put Mookie in the outfield, then we have the same problem with him in the outfield because they've got so many outfielders that could be playing too. And there's just somewhere there's going to be a guy when you put together this much talent on a baseball team, you're going to have a couple of guys that are going to have to be role players more. They're going to have to play a couple different positions. They're going to have to spot start in a few spots to give guys breaks. They're going to, and especially when you've got Shoei, who's pretty much just your DH. You don't
your
have that
full-time
spot.
DH.
Yeah, you don't
Exactly.
you don't have the DH spot like some other teams do, where you can rotate guys through, give them a day off in the field, but they're the DH. That's Shoei's going to be the DH. So, um, and he'll probably. I mean, honestly, we don't know. It remains to be seen. I would guess Shoei might not be in the. I don't know. Will he not be in the lineup on the Daisy pitches? Or will he be in the lineup on the Daisy pitches? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, so we'll see. It'll be interesting with that. And yeah, I mean, it's probably what I envision probably happening is you're going to have some of these guys split time, and one of them's going to end up rise. The cream rises to the top, and one of them's going
Mhm.
to rise to the occasion, and it might be Tommy Edmonds, it might be Kim, it might who knows.
So
Andy
there's
could be Andy. You don't know. Could be someone we're not even talking about right
yeah.
now that just comes out of nowhere. That happens too. So, um, my hope with all of that is they've got it really dialed in and figured out by the time we get to the playoffs,
Yeah.
because we both know that in MLB anymore, there's two seasons. There's the regular season, and then the playoffs is a whole nother animal.
Whole nother
Like
ball game.
just got to get there. That's all. I mean, as much as you like winning the NL West, we've proven that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Yeah.
You know.
So my initial argument here is it brings up two sides of a coin, right? And
Yeah.
so the first side of the coin is it's going to suck because somebody that should be, or two people that should be possibly full-time players are not going to be full-time players.
Yeah.
The flip side to this coin, the positive, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. The first time or the last I've been told that I'm wrong. I mean, I woke up this morning and my wife probably told me I did that wrong. You know how it rolls with wives.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
know how to
For
tell us
sure.
what we're wrong.
Yep.
So the flip side to that coin is you are on DEFCON 5. Unless you are Shohei Ohtani, unless you are Freddie Freeman, unless you are Mookie Betts. And for the most part, unless you're Teoscar Hernandez, you're
Mm-hmm.
on DEFCON 5. You start slow, you have a slow spill. Um, there's somebody right behind you ready to
Yep.
play.
Yep.
So I'm talking to you, Max Muncy. If you start, 2 for 27, you
Yep.
may or may not, you may or may not get a lot of time.
Yep.
Um, so tell me I'm wrong.
Oh, I agree. I agree with you on that. And look, as a fan of the team, the Dodgers, you love having this problem. You do. As big of a headache as it's going to be for Dave, he loves having this problem that he's got too many guys to figure out where to put him because he, like you said, and look, we all love Max Muncy, but if he struggles out the gate, we got a lot of guys that are going to be looking to get in there and do something else. And so, yeah, it's a little bit of pressure. But like I said, as a fan, you like that. I mean, that's what you want. You want these guys being pushed. You want them trying to get better. That's one thing about Mookie at short that I do like is he's the kind of personality that you give him a challenge, he's going to figure it out. He's going to do his best to figure it out. So we know he's been putting in a lot of extra time. So we'll see. Like I said, as a fan, I think it's as long as you don't get too hung up on one particular player, it's a great problem to have in case guys slip into major slumps. If guys get injuries. I mean, how big was that injury to Max Muncy a few years ago when he hurt his hand right at the start of the playoffs? I mean, we needed him
Huge,
in that run, and we didn't
huge,
have someone on the bench that could really step up. And this year, if something like that happened, we do, assuming everyone else
huge,
stays healthy. So,
huge,
yeah, I agree with you.
absolutely
It's
huge.
these guys that are, minus maybe one, minus Shoei, minus probably Freddie, but maybe even, maybe minus Tesker, maybe minus Mookie, but even those guys, like you just don't know what with everybody on this roster.
Is interchangeable.
It is, and you've got a lot of guys that can play a couple of positions and multiple positions, and it's like I said, it's a good problem to have in case we all know it's 162 games. It's a long season. There's injury time. There's, you know, look, the ability we talked about this. I think we talked about this on the show, but the ability to through the regular season even go with a 6-man rotation, give guys extra rest. Maybe in the end of the year they don't have quite as many innings pitched and quite as many game opportunities, but they're more fresh and ready to go for the playoffs, and you got less worry about that. So good problems to have. I'll take them rather than looking at guys like we have nobody who can play first base or we have nobody who can play left field, and there's plenty of teams in the MLB that are looking down the barrel of that prospect right now. So we'll take the problems we have as Dodger fans.
Yes, 2000%, 2000%. Okay, one more personnel question I got for you,
Okay.
then we'll talk about the sponsors again, and then we'll talk about spring training. I want to dive
Yes.
into your thoughts about spring training here. Um, Personnel. Uh, I'm sorry. Kiki Hernandez
Yep.
and Clayton Kershaw, both are Dodgers again.
Yep.
Uh, just overall thoughts about both of these guys.
I said it. Talked about him a little bit ago. I'm a big fan of both players. I I like Kike's playoff production, but I also like his clubhouse presence, and he got brought back for as much of that as he did what he does in the playoffs. And he's just, I don't know, it just feels like that guy that when all the chips are down, he's able to step up and get the big hit, get the draw the walk, hit the sack fly, steal the base, take the extra base, whatever little things need to be done. You need guys like that in the playoffs, and I feel like he's one. So I'm glad with him, and I'm not overly upset or even upset at all. A 1 year, $6.5 million deal. The landscape of MLB, that's nothing. It's just that's fine. We can handle that. Kershaw, kind of the same thing. 1 year, $7.5 million deal. I do think Kershaw's a guy that was brought back. I see him. You and I have talked about this a few times. I can see him as a guy they're grooming to eventually become the pitching coach for the Dodgers. And I think that's part of his role as they bring him back. And I'm sure they've probably talked to him about that. Like, hey, with everyone we got, you're probably not going to get as many starts as you normally would in a season, but you know, you'll get plenty of opportunities. We want you in the playoffs, and we need you to help mentor some of these young kids, teach them how to pitch.
Yeah.
It's
I
it's a lot of guys can throw hard, a lot of guys can throw a pitch with movement, but to really know how to pitch and put it where you want to put it, that takes a guy like Clayton. So
It does take a guy like Clayton, and I got to tell you, if I'm Dave Roberts, I'm looking over my shoulder for when this guy retires because as soon as Clayton retires, he'll probably become a pitching coach. Mark Pryor will probably be
yep,
out, and then as soon as Dave Roberts is ready to retire, he's going to slide right into that managerial spot. Just
I
like
can
I
see that 100%.
just like I said before, if Derek Jeter decides he wants to be the manager of the Yankees, Aaron Boone, middle of the season, middle of the game, Aaron Boone gets fired.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
I mean, it's nobody tells Derek Jeter. I mean, the
yeah,
man's got a freaking Nike commercial where Michael Jordan is tipping his cap to him.
yeah,
I mean, Michael
yeah,
Jordan literally saved Nike as an organization.
yeah. Exactly.
And
They exist because of him.
yes,
So
I
yeah,
mean, because Reebok and Adidas were the shoes. I mean, what's it? Bird and Magic were wearing Adidas.
the yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
cared about Nike.
No, no, and Michael almost signed with Adidas because I think at the time that's who was the shoe company, the apparel for North Carolina,
Mhm.
and he's comfortable with those, and he did. I mean, I love that stat too. I don't remember the exact numbers, but just he had to sell like a certain number of shoes or dollar amount, and he blew like every metric they had like completely out of the water, like it wasn't even close.
Well, when the
So
dude jumps from the free throw line and makes a dunk,
yeah,
at that point, you're flying. You're not
yeah,
just jumping, you're flying.
you're
And
flying.
so,
Yeah. And all
so
of us that grew up through those years, we all know. Look, you can talk all you youngsters all you want, but unless you actually saw Michael Jordan play, you don't know what that was really about. So, and like you said, to have him tipping his hat to DJ, that shows you where DJ's level is.
of course, of
And
course.
Kershaw within the Dodgers is at that type of thing. He's a Dodger for life. We all want him to be a Dodger for life. And I mean, I think I can't imagine there's a single Dodger fan that's upset that they brought him back, regardless of how many innings he pitches this year.
No, no, and I think he's only like 35 strikeouts away from his next
Yeah,
milestone or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
38
and
strikeouts.
yeah, and it's he might be the last guy that the way they handle pitchers anymore. He might be the last guy who hits 3,000 strikeouts in a career. He might be. He's the only one
Well,
really right now with the legit chance of getting there.
yeah, I've had conversations offline about this. I think Jose Altuve, I think Bryce Harper, I think for the most part, Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts are the last guys that you're going to see hit 3,000 hits because
Yeah,
guys just don't play as long anymore
they
because
don't.
of
They
the
don't.
economics.
Yeah, they don't play as long as they used to. They everyone takes days off in the season. That didn't used to be a thing at all, and now it's usually built in. You usually get a day off a week. Most of these
Yeah,
guys,
yeah.
and so yeah, I think you're right. I think we're starting to get into a point where the way this game is played, about the only and who man, you're going to be hard pressed to have anybody beat Trevor Hoffman, let alone Mariano as far as saves, even with that being a stat we get a lot of games that you're just no one has proven they can have a closer career as long as those two. They
No,
just, I
not
mean,
at
you
all.
thought you saw guys here and there, but they flame out a lot quicker. So
Yeah.
it's those are one of those I don't think anyone will touch.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, before we get much further into the
Okay.
show, we want to thank all of our sponsors. In Southern California, had the pleasure of working with Ruby's Diner in Laguna Beach. Please, by all means, if you're in Southern California, go out and check out these guys. Ruby's Diner, walk in, look for Ned, ask for Ned or Rachel, and just say, "Hey, I listened to the Top Fan Rivalry broadcast on Bleacher Brothers Network and or on YouTube or in the locker room, and I just had to stop by." They'll take good care of you. Clothing apparel, Franken, gentlemen, these guys are absolutely phenomenal. They do a lot of amazing things. Again, the Inland Empire is run on Dunkin' Donuts. Yes, in Upland, they have locations in Upland, Rancho Cucamonga, Fontana, the Ontario Airport, one in Colton, and they have another one opening up in Colton again. So we want to thank these folks. We tip our caps to them. They're phenomenal. We've got a number of new corporate sponsors that we're going to be speaking about throughout the next several weeks. Don't think by any way, shape, or form this is it. We always want to give love to the pizza store over in Laguna Hills, sponsored by OC Local or ran by OC Local. And of course, we got to talk to our good friend Darren over at Gravity Road Productions. These guys are great. So, Scott, got a lot of people supporting this small business, which is phenomenal. It's because I tell them that I know Scott and he knows Dodger things, and then they just write the checks. I
I
just say,
love it.
do not make me send Scott after you. They're, what is that, that guy? That
They're
guy?
like,
Okay, I'm gonna write the
yeah, I
check.
don't
How
know.
much you want?
Yeah,
I said,
I
just
don't
add a
want to
couple
talk
of
to him.
zeros before the decimal,
That's
all
right.
because of
That's right.
Scott. So,
That's right.
okay, Scott, here's my next question for you. Next
Okay.
part of the show. Um, we talked about player personnel for the Dodgers.
Yes.
Now let's talk about spring training. Obviously, the Dodgers lost today,
Yep.
um, and they're losing big. They're not losing. They're losing 8-1. They gave up, I think,
Right.
11 runs one game. I believe they're 1-4. What does spring train? There's a two-part question here.
Okay.
Obviously, one, we're seeing a lot of the guys giving up runs, pitchers that aren't going to make the roster this season. There are a lot of the younger kids,
Right.
which that
Right.
doesn't say much to me, um, except for, hey, we're giving them a taste of what they're going to see, what they can work on,
Right.
yada yada yada. That being said, do we put a lot of strength and merit into what we're seeing at the beginning of this, or is for you is spring training something where you just look at and you go, "This is when I'm tuning up my stuff. I'm not worried if we win 3 games in spring training. I want it when it counts."
Right. I'm more of that. I'm more of the latter. I don't. I look in the regular season, and especially as we get into playoffs, I get as frustrated when we lose and do stupid things as anybody. But spring training for me, I'll give an analogy. I'm in Salt Lake. It's been cold. We had snow last week. There's still some snow on the ground, but today it was 58 degrees, and my cousin and I went and played golf at the golf course right by our house here, and conditions at the course weren't great. The grass is still brown. It's still dormant. Hasn't started turning green even. But we were just our whole attitude the whole round was just we haven't played real golf outside in a few months because it's been winter here. Let's who cares? You hit a bad shot, drop another ball, hit another one. That's kind of my mentality with spring training, especially February spring training. Once we start getting into March,
Yeah,
and especially deep into March, that's when I want to start seeing things round into form. But like Glasnow, we just talked about Glasnow. Guy pitched 1 inning. He struck out the first 2 batters, and then he gave up 2 runs and 3 hits. Ideal? Absolutely not. Would we all be yelling at the TV on opening day, or especially in late September as we get into playoff time? Of course we would. But spring training, his first start in a while after coming back from injury, not getting too much heartburn over it. You pointed out too the other thing. Like if you go look at we had 8 pitchers pitch 1 inning today. The Dodgers did. So Dave's just giving guys a chance to get out there and get loose. That's really what's happening.
Hmm.
We'll start worrying about it when Glasnow's throwing 4, 5, 6 innings in spring training, and if his numbers aren't looking like we expect him to be, then we can get into a little bit of, man, what's going on with Tyler. But I just, spring training for me, spring training is a blast. First of all, I love going to spring training. I just love being there. You get to see a bunch of the young kids, but then, and even the veterans, they're a little looser, um, just a little more loosey goosey, signing autographs, talking to people during games. If they're, it's just, spring training is great. But this early, I'm not worried at all. Nothing anyone's doing is concerning me. I'm just glad they're back out there, just like I was glad to be out there swinging a golf club today. So
See, and Scott, I take that same approach that you do. I'm not gonna lie to you. I take that same that you do. To me, spring training when you have a physically demanding job like these guys do, and it's basically February 10th, 14th ish, all the way through beginning of October for some clubs, end of October, early November.
mm-hmm.
With the travel, I mean, just imagine for a second, Scott, you play a baseball game, right? You're a middle infielder, you play 9 innings, you get
Right,
a warm shower, and you're going directly from the field to, if you're a Dodger, directly from the field to LAX to fly to New York.
right,
And for the next 9 days, you're going to be in New York, Boston, and Philadelphia.
right,
Um, and then you get to fly home. It takes a toll on your body.
for
And so
sure.
these guys take a couple of months off and then they get right back at it. For those of you that have played before that are listening to this, Scott, has played, I've played. There's things that become second nature and are natural,
Mm-hmm.
i.e., how to throw a ball, how to make a ball curve, whatever. If you're a hitter, your stance, things that come natural, getting your timing back is, a thing. But,
For sure.
you're just tuning up. You're going from good to better to best, and you're trying to get yourself at that best level. Spring training doesn't bother me. I don't care if you win 5 games, lose
Right.
15 or 18.
I'm the same.
It doesn't
And you,
matter.
and you know how it goes too. There's a lot of I think most people who are probably listening to this know this, but for those who may not, like there's several times where you've got split squad games. You've got two games going on in the same day. So half your team is over somewhere else. And look, different teams take different approaches to those too. Sometimes you put, one really good lineup and then all your rookies and guys trying to make the team on the other one. And sometimes you mix them together. Give them both a chance to see. And it just depends on what Dave Roberts and the rest of the player personnel people and coaching staff want to see and need to see. So I'm with you. It's not a time to panic. It doesn't mean anything. I feel the same way about the preseason in all the sports. Like it's necessary from a standpoint of getting people back into game shape, getting them used to playing games, the competitive nature, the having to pay attention to the clock or the innings or whatever it is. But well, I guess we have to pay attention to the pitch clock in baseball now, so that works too.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I keep forgetting about that one, but it's just look, it's time to prepare, right?
Yeah.
And I think most fans, you get a little uneasy even in April as the real season starts, as if your team starts a little slow. But that's you know, if they haven't picked it up by the All-Star break, then you're in trouble. But you know, April, we've seen plenty of teams play not good, even awful in April, and still make the playoffs and even still win the World Series. So
Yeah.
it's a long season, and you have to be. It's something I've had to learn as I've gotten older. Is I got to be more philosophical about it. And you take spring training, and whether they win 5 games or 20 games, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be indicative of how the season goes. I don't think.
No, 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 not at all. Not at all. Okay. So we agree on that. Um, the if you're a club like the Dodgers, so most clubs are bringing up guys that are trying to make the team.
Right.
Okay. And for the most part, the Dodgers 40-man roster is already set.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. They pretty much Dave Roberts pretty much knows what that's looking like opening day,
yeah, yeah.
assuming
And
everyone's healthy.
yeah, and so for those of you that don't know, that you have 26 players on your team. You have another 14 that, for lack of better terms, I'm going to call them on the taxi squad. These are
Mm-hmm.
the guys that are going to go up and down from AAA all
Yeah.
season. Somebody gets hurt. Don't be surprised if somebody has a baby toe hangnail. because they're batting 205.
Yeah, exactly.
And all of a sudden we want, Kiki or somebody else to get some more time, and somebody has a hangnail on their right pinky toe that is going to put them on a 10-day IL. So
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you know,
Exactly. Send them back to Arizona to hang out at spring training facilities for a week.
yeah, exactly. But for most part, the Dodgers have their 40-man roster set. So, Scott, let me ask you this. Okay. You were drafted by the Dodgers. Let's give you a hypothetical. You were drafted by the
Okay.
Dodgers 3 years ago. You are
Okay.
now bouncing between AA and AAA. Looks like you're going to make the AAA squad, but you have an invite to spring training.
Right.
You are a first baseman.
Okay.
Okay. And you know that Freddie's got that position locked
Yeah.
up for the next 4
Yeah.
years and
Yeah.
possibly a team extension after
Right.
that.
Right.
How are you going into spring training? What's your mentality?
I mean, I think for me, I would take the approach and I would let it be known to all of the coaches that would listen to me that look, I'm willing to play any position you want me to play. I am willing to do, transition to whatever position you need me to transition to. I just want to help this team. And I know not all guys have that mentality, and that's fine. You need different mentalities on the team. And I go back to, you know there's plenty of guys who refused to switch positions for a variety of reasons in all of the sports, and some of them end up Hall of Famers, and some of them end up being on the SEC network. Um, Tim Tebow.
Yeah, I
Um,
you, go Adams.
yeah, yeah, but like
The
I
Pac
feel like,
27.
yeah, I feel like for me, just that with my personality, that's how I would approach it, because I'd be coming into spring training and I'm a first baseman and I'm like, you know what, man, I know for the next 4 years at least I'm not sniffing first base, and which also means I'm probably not sniffing the bigs because of Freddie Freeman, and you just have to accept that fact and realize Freddie Freeman's a Hall of Fame first baseman, and if I want to play baseball, I'm going to have to adjust. So and look, maybe the coaches, aren't interested in that and they keep you down there. I'm not going to be the guy. I know there's other guys like this. And again, I don't fault them. Um, you got to live your own life, but there's plenty of guys who would whine and ask for trades. Be like, I know I'm not making the big league squad in the next 4 years as a first baseman. So trade me somewhere where I can, at least have an opportunity. So, but for me, that's just not me. That's not my personality. I'm going to try to not make waves, and I'm a pretty fiercely loyal person. And so, team drafts me, Dodgers draft me. I'm going to be like, look, I realize I'm probably not getting up to the big leagues at first base. Where else can you put me? What else can I do for you to make this team win?
Okay. So I have some thoughts on that, but I'm going to come back to that in a second.
Okay.
Now, you're Hunter Fiducia.
Okay.
You are the third string catcher for the Dodgers. You
Right.
know you're going to be in AAA this year. You know Austin
Yep.
Barnes has only got one more year left on his contract.
Yep.
How do you approach this spring training?
I think you try to do as much as you can. And obviously, like we said, that baseball's a mental game. There's physicality that is involved with it, but when it boils down to it, the guys who are tougher than the 6 inches between their ears, they're going to be the guys who rise to the top because they will put in the time. And I think that's what you do is you realize, okay, look, I'm probably going to be at AAA all this year, but I'm auditioning right now in spring training to be the second string catcher next year, that I can back up Will Smith next year. And so you want to make sure. I mean, I would my advice to him would be show up early, be the one of the last ones to leave, put in extra work, show up to anything that's voluntary, right? Obviously, you got to be at mandatory, but anything that's voluntary, show up at every one of those you can. And you just, you said it earlier. There are guys waiting in the wings, and somebody, what for him even? What if Will Smith and Austin Barnes both are terrible to start the season? We get to the end of the May and they're both hitting under 100. Could happen. Probably won't, but could
Probably won't.
happen. Yeah, probably won't. But you have to be as that guy. You have to be prepared. Maybe I might get the call up if somebody gets hurt and I have to be the second string. So I think that's how you approach it. I think you say, look, you just take your medicine that you're probably going to be in AAA all year, but you try your hardest and just be early to everything, be late leaving everything, and show up to anything that you can, even if it's not mandatory.
Yeah, I that's a great approach. I mean, if I were a first baseman, the way that I would look at it is I'm going to show up and show out. I'm going to do exactly what you said, but I'm looking at the ability to play very well in spring training, play very well in AAA, to be
Yep.
used as a trade.
Yeah.
Because Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy can move over to first back of Freddie Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
Kiki Hernandez has played every position, including pitcher,
Right.
except for catcher. So he's
Right.
played every position except for one on the
Right.
field. You got CT3 that can play first base, and Freddie the Teeth Freeman is still there for another 4 years,
Yeah. At
right?
least.
And he will probably be about 300 hits shy of 3,000. It would not surprise me if he re-ups it for another season or
Right.
two or three.
Right. To get to that number, as the Dodgers would want him to get to that number as a Dodger, kind of like Kershaw is in that same boat for
Yep,
a couple of milestone things that are coming for him with strikeouts and
yep,
things like that. He
exactly.
he wants to, Dodgers want, because look, teams want that. They want the history. Those are things they can monetize in perpetuity. Think about how many Sandy Koufax things they can still sell because of what Sandy did for the Dodgers. So yeah, I agree
100%.
with you. I think you bust it out, you make it known you're willing to do whatever it takes, but you go after it as much as you can, hoping you make an impression, and either the team wants you bad enough that they figure out a spot for you, or you become trade bait and can go start somewhere else.
Right. The other,
Because the
the
key,
other,
because the key for these guys, right, is they want to become a everyday starter because that's when they can make the big dollars and have these 5 6 year 7 year contracts that pay them and put them in a financial position they'll never worry about money again if they're smart.
100%. The other,
So
so the other one, the Hunter Fiducia. If I'm Hunter Fiducia, I'm looking at it knowing, hey, I'm probably going to be in the big club if something happens to either one of the catchers,
mm-hmm.
but I'm going to be on the big club next year because we're not going to re-sign Austin Barnes.
Right, right, he'll be
That
done,
being
he'll be
said,
done.
yeah, I'm looking to have the best spring training I possibly can, have the best time in AAA that I possibly can. Because Will
Yep.
Smith is, I believe, age 30 now. And so Will Smith is in a position where he might be behind the dish for another 3 more years, 4 more years, and then they might move him over to third to
Mm-hmm.
maybe not to first because Freddie's there, maybe to
Right,
the outfield.
right.
Um, and so Will Smith's not gonna he's not gonna be a 37-year-old catcher.
No.
So he's gonna so if I'm Hunter, I'm looking at that going, hey, I got some
Yeah.
time here. But if I'm
Yep.
a first baseman, I'm
And of
kind of
and of all
looking,
the and of yeah, I agree with you. I think if you're the first baseman in that situation, you're maybe hoping a trade can come your way. If you're not willing to switch positions and be a Kike Hernandez type guy. Um, and look, most first basemen are not even capable of doing that. Let's be honest. A lot of guys are at first base because they mash.
mm, yeah.
They hit the ball and they don't move so well. First base is you got to move the least amount
I know this
out
is
in
a
the outfield,
Dodger
out in
Update
the
podcast episode, but take Gavin Lux, for example. Gavin
yeah,
Lux gets traded. He's going to play every day in Cincinnati.
yep,
He's getting traded to a division that is not the strongest in baseball.
right,
So he's making some adjustments and some changes that make sense for him and for his career going forward.
right.
So yeah, no, I like this. Okay, so we talked about spring training. Let's kind of go through one more topic, then we'll talk to our sponsors again. We'll do some wrap up. Um, Other topic. This is something that burns in me, Scott, and
Okay,
I'm talking deep, deep down. It burns in me.
okay,
Okay. Guys come into this, and I'm not necessarily talking about the Dodgers this season, but I will tell you the 90s Dodgers, early 2000s Dodgers, yes, yes. And even some of the 80s teams. You come in day one and you think, okay, this is game one of 162.
right,
You miss a cutoff, man, whatever. You miss a sign, whatever.
right.
Okay. How many times have we seen teams miss a playoff run because of a game or two or three? And then you're sitting back on your couch going, See, if I wouldn't have airmailed that thing from right field to the catcher when
Right.
I didn't have a chance to get Ellie De La Cruz, um, I'm yeah, it just
Yeah.
doesn't work. And so, yeah, what I'm trying to say is you got to really tune it up early.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can find yourself too far behind. Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense?
Yeah, very much so. Like I said, you don't hit the panic button if your team's starting slow, but when you're that team and you're starting slow, you got to figure it out because, like you said, you can't dig yourself such a big hole that it's impossible to get out of, or even that you have to fight tooth and nail. You get into the playoffs, but then you've kind of spent most of your energy clawing your way back in a
Yeah,
race to get to the playoffs. So,
true. And
yeah,
that's
I agree with you. And it's look in a 162 game season, the game on April 2nd is worth the same amount of wins as the game on August 21st. So,
yeah, yeah.
maybe you're leading in the division in August, but that's because you focused on that game April 2nd. And like you said, instead of airmailing it to home because you can't throw out Ellie from second, you throw it to third so that the guy doesn't advance all the way to third. You
So
know.
it's funny, and I'm not going to mention names here, but Ned Cleddy. I'm sitting in a box with Ned Cleddy and some of my friends back when
Mm-hmm.
blogs were first a thing, oh
Okay.
04, oh 05, someplace in there, right?
Right.
Blogs are a brand new thing. And my buddy gets invited to go sit back when the McCourts on the team. And we watched, I won't mention the name of the center fielder, but Matt Kemp. Watched Matt Kemp airmail something from center field
Yeah.
way over Paul LaDuca's head, I believe it was.
Okay.
Um, and so, oh no, Russell Martin. I'm sorry, you had
Mm.
Martin, Kemp, Loney. It was that way
That
over
that
Russell
team,
Martin's head.
Ethier.
Yeah, Ethier. And the Dodgers ended up committing three kind of what I'm going to say just bonehead plays.
Okay.
And they ended up losing the game.
Yeah.
And after Matt Kemp airmailed this thing into Russell Martin, and by the way, by the time that Matt Kemp got it, he was playing center field. By the time Matt Kemp got it, by the
Right.
time he got it, the guy had already touched third and had passed the third base
Yeah. You're
coach.
not throwing them. Yeah. You're not throwing them out at home. You're
Yeah,
just
you
not.
got he's got 55 feet, and you've got to make a perfect throw. Russell Martin's got to catch a tag. You're just you're
Yeah.
probably not doing it. And Ned Cleddy just shook his head and he says, if we miss the game, if we miss the playoffs, this is before we even had lost the game. He says, if we
Right.
miss the playoffs by one game, I'm going to bring this. And this was April or May. I think this
Right.
was late April. And so he says, I'm going to bring this up to Matt if we miss the playoffs. And
Right.
that year we ended up missing the playoffs by like 12 games. So I don't think you
So the
need to
one
bring
game
that one
didn't
up.
so much
But
matter, but yeah.
but
Oh.
it's the mental side. Physical mistakes are going to happen. You and I both know that.
Yep.
April is a cold month in Chicago. It's a cold month in Cleveland. It's a cold month in Cincinnati. It's a cold month. Take your pick,
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's a cold month, yada, yada, yada. So from that aspect of it, it's a cold month.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It is. Oh, for sure. For
so,
sure. But you've got it
um,
like you said, you've got to not have the mental errors, the mental mistakes. The
yeah,
physical work, look, you're not going to always hit the ball correctly. Your pitch isn't always going to hit the right spot. You're going to airmail a throw every once in a while, but make the right decision before that. Like you said, rather than I'm getting to the ball and the dude's already rounded third, and I'm gonna, look, Bo Jackson on his best throw ever is not throwing that guy out at home. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
it's just especially depending on who it is running. So minimize the base running from the other runners. Make sure the guy doesn't end up, with a double advance to third on the throw, or he doesn't, end up with a base hit advance to second on the throw. Make the right, it's
100%.
not to rub salt in anybody's wound, but it's gonna. But it's like Aaron Judge in the World Series, right? Like I don't know that what his error was not a mental mistake. I mean, you could argue that he didn't, mentally didn't make sure he got to the ball. He kind of took his eye off the ball. But that to me was a physical mistake. Whereas Cole not covering first base in that same inning, that's a mental
Mental.
mistake. And those are the ones you have to eliminate. You cannot cost yourself games with those mental mistakes.
90%
Because
of the game is half mental.
yeah, it is. And it's you just when you're at that level, that's and that's why I'm like, look, Aaron's catching heat for what happened. Judge is catching heat for that. But he's also catching heat because he didn't hit very well in the World Series. But look, that game, that inning specifically, there were two more official errors and one other terrible decision by the Yankees in that inning
Yeah.
after Judge missed that ball. So that's not all on him. And I bring that up, like I said, not to rub salt in the wound, but to illustrate there's those physical mistakes where you just come up a little short trying to catch the ball, or you just tried to put a little too much on a throw to first and you threw it in the dirt or just a little over his head. Those you can live with. What you can't live with is not covering first base when you literally are working on that from the time you step into pitchers and catchers reporting in spring training, and literally something you've been working on since you were in little league.
Since
If
you
you're
were
a
10
pitcher,
years old, you learn. You learn.
it doesn't matter. And that's the thing. It's not supposed to matter where the ball goes. The pitcher is supposed to be making a move towards first base at the very least to back up first base.
Okay. Trust me,
So
when that ball got hit to Anthony Rizzo, I looked at my buddy and I said, "There's your professional pitcher right there. He got out of a jam. Pressure pitches, he got
right,
out of a jam.
right.
But
But
then when he didn't
then he
cover,
doesn't cover.
I was like, then you're tempting the baseball gods." So,
Yep.
all right, real quick, because we
Anyway,
only got 4 minutes left in the show,
okay.
and I got one more question for Scotty. I want to mention our corporate sponsors one last time. Ruby's Diner in California. Thank you so much for your love and support. Drunken Gentlemen, clothing apparel. We love you. Thank you, Josh, over there. And definitely Dunkin' Donuts. Inland Empire is run on Dunkin' Donuts. They got one in Fontana. They got one in Rancho Cucamonga, Upland, Colton, the Ontario Airport, another one coming in Colton in April. So thank you so much for your efforts. Thank you for everything you do. Scott, we talked about the roster. We talked about
Yeah.
position players. We talked about some of the things that are happening in spring training. Here's my final thought.
Okay.
Okay. And here's my final question for you. Everybody is going to be out to get the Dodgers because everybody thinks that it's a
Yes.
super team.
Yes.
You roll into Colorado, who, by the way, always plays the Dodgers very well.
Yes.
You roll into Arizona, who always plays the Dodgers very well, by the way.
Yes.
You roll into Miami, who doesn't play anybody well, right? And so you roll into these different towns, and they're going to want to kick you in the teeth.
Yeah. Yeah. You're getting everybody's best shot.
Uh-huh. And you roll into Miami, and you get swept 4 games. Mentally, what do you do?
Mentally, you just have to move on from it. You just have to say, they just had our number this series. We'll have to get them the next time we play them and just move on. The worst thing you see is that kind of stuff derail teams, and it happens all the time. They just, for whatever reason, for 4 or 5 days or 3 days, whatever, they kind of play to the level of their competition, and you play down to your level of competition, and you lose those games. And baseball. That's the upside of baseball being 162 games is you kind of know going into the season, okay, we're going to win 50 games. We're going to lose 50 games. What do we do with the other 62 games? You kind of know. We know we're going to split 100 games, and then those other, 50, but 62 to get to the full season. You got to win 2/3 of those so that you can make the playoffs. Ideally, you win all of those other 62 but you got to at least get yourself, 45 of those 62. And so
Great.
that's the mentality I think you have to have when you go in and do that, because baseball's a long season. Guys get into slumps all the time. Teams, and that's the worst, right? You've seen that with the Dodgers at times in the playoffs over the last several years with this squad that they've put together. You and I remember watching those Yankee teams of the early 2000s do that same thing with Gary Sheffield, Jason Giambi, A-Rod, Derek G. I mean, think about that lineup. There is no fathomable reason that they should have won only one World Series in 2009, and that was after Giambi and Sheffield were gone. Like they never won with. I mean, it's just you look at that lineup and it's like this team should be raking, but that's baseball. That's just baseball, and hopefully you can. If one of your guys is in a slump, you got a team put together like the Dodgers too. If Shohei's in a slump, hopefully the rest of the guys are not.
Yeah.
And where you get the worst is where everybody gets in that slump. So that's I think that's what you do with those. You just like, look, we're gonna have slumps, we're gonna have downtimes, we're gonna lose four straight at times. Sometimes the teams we should handily beat on paper, but you just can't dwell on them. And
Yeah.
it's hard. And as fans, I think players are way better at moving on than fans are. We dwell on stuff way too much as fans. I know I'm guilty of that all the time.
Yeah, 100%. Well, everybody that's listening to this on Bleach Brothers Network, we want to thank you for your listening to a full hour of
Thank you.
Dodger Update brought to you by Top Fan Rivalry with my co-host with the most, Scott Carter. This guy, I can brag about him for the next hour, man.
Oh, you're too nice.
This guy is a great dude. Pay attention to what Top Fan Rivalry is doing. We want to thank AJ over at Bleacher Brothers. Again, we want to thank those corporate sponsors. We want to thank everybody on there. Scotty will be back in 2 weeks. We'll have another Dodger update for you this coming week, but enjoy the week. We are getting 1 week closer now.
Oh,
One
it's
week
so
closer now
glorious.
to actually opening day. So let's love it. Scott, thanks so much for the
Go
time, and we'll
Dodgers.
see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
You bet.